Yes, folks, Australian firefighters have just been attacked by the despicable radical left. And this comes on the back of good hard-working New Zealanders being attacked by the same kind of radicals. Good New Zealand farmers have been attacked, along with the good folk on the west coast. And all of this is happening because the left have this delusional, demented notion that good is bad and bad is good. Now, right now in Australia, as good volunteer firefighters try to save lives and property, they have been labelled wife beaters and paedophiles. Have a look.
Firefighters, the firefighter right out there now saying, saving Australians from these bushfires. But apparently some people can't let that sort of happen. So first we had an activist, you might recall last week, standing with the Green Senator saying, watch out, firefighters are more likely, when they get home, to bash their wives.
After a cataclysmic event like this, domestic violence peaks, women become extremely unsafe when generally the men return home from the fires and subject them to domestic violence.
Yeah, I'll just stop there. Folks, and find out a bit more about this story.
Cheryl Moody from the Red Heart campaign. I'm here today to present a petition to the Senate on behalf of 71,000 fellow Australians who are opposed to the family law inquiry and are opposed to Pauline Hanson's role on it. I understand that it's not a huge topic of interest at the moment given the fires, but it is something that we do need to keep on the agenda. There's a lot of women out there who are feeling very stressed and very concerned about their futures, about their children's futures. They're very concerned about the process of the family law inquiry and the potential outcomes that could impact on their safety and the safety of the kids in their care. I'd just like to also say while I'm here, I understand that every Australian is very concerned about the fires at the moment, and as we should be, and we're very concerned about those on the front line and those who are living in the areas. But I'd also like to point out that after a cataclysmic event like this, domestic violence peaks and women become extremely unsafe when generally the men return home from the fires and subject them to domestic violence.
So, generally, men return home from the fires and subject them to domestic violence. That's a filthy, dirty, feminist lie.
This is not to say that every person on the front line is a domestic violence perpetrator, but certainly research shows, and we know from the experience of Black Saturday in Victoria 10 years ago, that women are subjected to much harsher, much crueler forms of domestic violence, and we need...
That's an absolute lie. So let's find out the truth about that research.
Greens decided to have a press conference today with a domestic violence, well, not advocate, but somebody who's trying to fight domestic violence. And she said one of the most outrageous things I have heard in a very, very long time. Pay attention to how the Greens said nothing when this slur was being said about firefighters.
Defending labelling the government
arsonists. Now's not the time to go quiet. Now's the time to take action.
The action taken by Green Senator Larissa Waters is to call another news conference at which women's rights activist Cheryl Moody claims returning firefighters are more likely to beat their partners.
After a cataclysmic event like this, domestic violence peaks.
The head of the Red Heart campaign against domestic violence says her claims are backed by academic research conducted after Victoria's Black Saturday fires.
Women become extremely unsafe when generally the men return home from the fires and subject them to domestic violence.
But the researcher, Dr. Deb Parkinson, told 7 News today that although she did find an increase in family violence in fire-affected communities, we never narrowed it down to make any particular findings about firefighters.
We never narrowed it down to make any particular findings about firefighters. So there's the truth, folks.
When 7 News pointed this out to Senator Waters, she said, "We note the research that violence increases during times of disasters." But texting 7 News from the Senate chamber, Larissa Waters says, "We absolutely distance ourselves from the statement made by Cheryl Moody that it is firefighters doing it. She does not speak for us."
Seriously, Senator, I mean, these people are shameless. Now, Larissa Waters has backfilled and has tried to walk away even further from this today. She didn't say it, but she was more than willing to put this person in front of the cameras today. What a disgraceful thing to say about people that are fighting fires when the evidence does not back it up at all.
They've really jumped the shark this week between their outlandish claims about the fires themselves to now be putting slurs on the character of the people who are putting their lives on the line to save lives, to save property, to contain these disasters is just so low.
Yeah, but what do you expect from low people?
I mean, they've got to be seen for the farce that they are, the Australian Greens, and this is yet another illumination of how much they've lost the plot.
Well, Gary, that's the thing. To me, when somebody says something at a press conference, you're not in charge of every word that they say, but when they turn around and say something like that, and you know that by virtue of endorsing them and standing next to them, if you don't butt in, you're going to end up having to wear it. Now, the assumption of the Greens today was that we'll let this slide until somebody catches it. And even when it was caught, it was only upon their second attempt to clean it up that they started to put any distance there.
Oh, look, Paul, you've got to take responsibility for it. If you're standing next to them, you own it. You're into it. You've got to be responsive, and it takes leadership. Larissa Waters just squeaked back at the last federal election in Queensland after leaving the parliament, coming back. Look, she's obviously a deer in the headlights, has no idea, but the whole idea that this kind of woke movement is now saying that climate change is to blame for domestic violence. That's the kind of space this woman took us into today. Just feeds into what is really quite an awful narrative, Paul. I mean, I'm really quite sad tonight about the stuff you talked about at the beginning of the show, people lighting fires, people damaging fighting equipment, people getting arrested, people getting charged, people being found getting a penalty, a few $100 on-the-spot fine for a fire that costs thousands and thousands, maybe tens of thousands of dollars to put out. I mean, there is something seriously wrong. Larissa Waters either wants to be part of a community that actually sets standards, or she just wants to be part of, well, she does. She wants to be part of a movement to change what Australia has always been, a decent place. I'm very sad about this.
Well, and he's right there. But I wouldn't say she wants to change Australia. I would say she wants to destroy Australia. Yeah, anyway, now back to Bolt.
And now, believe it or not, we're warned firefighters could actually be paedophiles as well. You see, in Queensland, volunteer firefighters have been ordered to lodge what's called a blue card application to prove they are safe to work with children.
Yeah, so that must apply to all men who come in contact with children. That means all men. And I always thought the left were opposed to discrimination.
They have to do this, fill it in, get this check by December 1, or they can't keep fighting fires. So that's 15,000 volunteers estimated. 15,000 might legally have to stay at home because apparently someone thinks it's safer to have them not fighting fires than letting them anywhere near the children that they'd be saving. Joining me for Culture Wars, as always, is Rowan Dean, author, editor of Spectator Australia, presenter of Outsiders on Sunday mornings. Wonderful show, rating its socks off. Rowan, what on earth is going on here?
The left would hate the idea of children being anywhere near firefighters or firefighters being anywhere near children unless they've got these particular blue cards. But they're quite happy for drag queens to sit down and chat to those same kids in school hours with no parents around and tell all sorts of genderqueer theories and fill the kids' heads with this sort of stuff. So the
Exactly. Double think through and through.
left have a very strange approach in my mind, to the issues to do with children and what they can or cannot be exposed to. But as for the firefighters, this is just another slap in the face. This is the Palaszczuk government putting red tape and obstacles in front of people becoming firefighters, making it harder for them, for volunteers, and a huge insult to those same volunteers, many of whom have responded to this on Talkback or letters to the editor and so on by saying, I'm deeply offended, I've been a firefighter for X number of years, I'm proud about it, and now you're treating me like I'm under some suspicion of being unsafe around children. And of course, if you follow the logic of this through, Andrew, and you have people who say, to hell with this, I'm not going to be insulted like this. I volunteered, I've devoted my many years to this work, and they decide, okay, this is too much, I'm out of this. Well, lives could be lost.
Lives will be lost.
And property could be destroyed, and people, and yes, children, could be under threat from the fires. And I think the fires are a far greater threat to any person than, the minimal risk or the chance that somehow there's some paedophile lurking in amongst, what is a great army of people in this country, which is volunteer rural firefighters.
Exactly. Yeah, but folks, do they actually believe gutless pedophiles would risk their lives fighting fires to get at children? Well, of course not. This is just an attack on men by a bunch of feminists who are full of hate. Sad women destroying lives with hate.